Hello, everyone. Glad you're joining us for the year 2014. This is our introductory show, and Tony and I decided to go international because we have an international guest. Right, Tony?
Right.
See, Tony knows. Anyway, I'm
very good friend.
We are both pleased that we have Madhu Avasarala, and also his email will be on the screen, joining us. And if you'll notice, he's seated between us, because usually when we're running on the trail with him, he's in front. So we have him cornered at the moment. So thank you for joining us this year and starting off the new year, and I can't think of a better guest than you.
No, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. This show is about mental toughness, and we know about your mental toughness, and we're going to find out more about it. But one thing that I also start a show with is a quote, and I want to see how the quote pertains to you, if it does. I told Tony that I'd probably get a Thomas Paine quote, but I didn't, because Madhu's a Thomas Paine expert.
I read a little about him.
He read a little bit about him, but anyway, we're going to find out more about Thomas Paine and specifically Madhu. So this is by Arnold Bennett. The gain in self-confidence of having accomplished a tiresome labor is immense. If you want, I can repeat it.
No, that's good. I can remember that. Not verbatim, but I understand.
Okay.
And how does that relate to you? Yeah.
If it does.
Well, yes, it does relate to me, and I think it relates to most people who value progress in their lives, because all life is basically a struggle. It's a purposeful struggle. And when you struggle and you achieve a reward, it's a stopping point where it spurs you on to doing better things and bigger things. And so in that sense, that quote is very applicable.
Okay. And some of your struggles might have been?
I wouldn't say they're anything special compared to most struggles. These would be your everyday normal struggles. The most basic would be just inertia, that of trying to get going and getting into a good, strong, light frame of mind, enlightened frame of mind, trying to be happy all the time. It would be the small devilish idiosyncrasies that you have to suppress in spite of yourself. These and things similar to these would be, I would say, the struggles.
So what are your secrets that you've acquired over these many years?
55.
55 years.
I would say I'm lucky that I've been able to gather a few simple algorithms wherein I can make life easier and more enjoyable.
He's an engineer, so he'll use these terms.
Well, you said something interesting. You try to say happy all the time. What do you do to accomplish that? What are the things you would do to?
Well, the first thing to realize is that happiness is the goal, in the sense that, so at least that itself is a big first step in the right direction. And then the second thing would be, how do you define that happiness? What is that happiness? Is it evanescent? Is it something which is tangible? Is it something solid? And something that is desirable? And then the third thing is, okay, how do you go about trying to achieve these things? And I would say a good tool for this is that of rationality, trying to have an analytical, a rational frame of mind And the bigger thing actually is to have this frame of mind, all encompassing. That is not in just at work, not in just at accomplishing a particular task, but the very fiber of your being. And once you incorporate that, you will find that decision making is easy, and you can stick with your decisions, and so forth. So those are the secrets, I think.
Okay. Now, let's do a little history and geography.
Okay.
Okay. So, Madhu, you were born where?
I was born in a small town called Kakinada, which is a coastal town, the southeast coast of India.
So, if you drew India on a map,
Yes. India is roughly a triangle in the 2/3 of the bottom part. So it's roughly about 1,000 miles from the bottom tip of India going north on the eastern coast, the Bay of Bengal.
okay, and compare the size of India as a country to the United States, or what? we
It's right. I believe it's roughly between. I think it's somewhere between 5 to 10 times smaller. So in other words, I think the U.S. is roughly 5 to 10 times the size of India, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, so another country similar in size would be?
To India,
Texas.
yeah, yeah. I don't have a ready country in mind. Something that big.
Brazil.
Brazil is quite big. I think
quite
Brazil
big.
is.
Actually bigger than India.
Yeah. It's quite big. No, I don't have a
Comparison.
comparison. Yeah.
Okay. So you're born 55 years ago in this coastal town. And how did your family arrive, or how long has your family been in this coastal town?
No time at all. Actually, it was my grandfather's town. So my mother went there so that she could deliver me. And then I've never lived there.
Oh.
And
You were
then
just born there.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were born there, and then from there, where did you go?
Well, then my father moved around a few cities as his job dictated. And then we finally ended up in a metropolitan city in India called Bangalore.
So where would that be on the map?
That would be roughly 1,000 miles. If you drew a line from the bottom of India to the top of India, along that axis, you would go about 1,000 miles north, and it would be there from the bottom of the country.
Okay. So up more near the top of?
No, it's still in the bottom 1/3 of India. India is a long, narrow triangle,
Okay.
so it's still in the southern part of India. Very
Still
much
southern.
part of India, correct.
Okay. Okay. So, and your father, you said, traveled around. What kind of work your father?
He was a mechanical engineer, so he taught in the Indian Institute of Technology, the northeastern part of India. And I have vague memories of that town. And then he came back to the south to a place called Madras, the famous place where all the curry is exported to the west, Madras curry. So we were there for a few years. Then he was manager of a gas plant, the works for gas and water and so forth for a company. And then in Bangalore, he was essentially in charge of the plant and services for electronic company.
Okay. So how long were you in Bangalore?
I did my schooling there, so I would say I lived for about 10 years in Bangalore.
Is that considered home?
That's a very good question. The answer is part-time, yes. For me, you mean, or?
For you. For you. Where is home?
Are you split between your two homes now?
Yeah, I have a home in Cool, United States, and I have a home in Bangalore, India. So if you ask me, what is your country or where is your home, I'll have a different. I'll say I have two countries and two homes.
Okay. So you were. So was this public schooling or private schooling?
Very much public schooling. In a small, it was in a small house, and my class was in like a small car garage.
Huh.
And that was my seventh grade
This
school.
is public school?
Yes. Actually, wait a minute. It would be considered a private school by definition, but it is actually, what is the definition of a public school anyway? That where
Public
the government,
Government.
public funded.
Right.
In that sense, it is not a public school, but it's not a private school in the sense that typically private schools here, the standard is much, much better than the public school, or it's more expensive.
Yeah, both.
Well, it's more expensive.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
necessarily better.
Well, it's debatable.
Debate, yeah. But in that sense, it's actually a private school, but because the public schools in India are so bad that it's still considered a mediocre, lower class economic type school. It's not a high-flying private school.
Okay, okay. So you were there through the 7th grade?
I was there through 10th grade.
Through 10th grade?
Yes.
Okay. And then where did you go to school?
Then I went to a Jesuit pre-university, St. Joseph's College, it was called,
Okay.
run by Jesuit fathers. And it was a good class school where they taught pretty well. And then it's the equivalent to your 10th and 11th grade, basically.
Was that also in the same community?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So growing up, going to private school and then a Jesuit school, were you speaking English throughout that period?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you learn English?
Well, the medium of instruction was English, and the medium of the spoken language amongst friends was English.
Is that normal in India for everyone to?
Amongst the economic class which I belonged to, which was I would consider middle class, that was, and in the cities that was common. That is still common.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And so what were the American influences back then?
Oh, the movies. I would say the movies were a big part of our imagination, fantasy even, and they were
Was this the movie theater or TV?
everything about the movies in the sense of, for example, when we were growing up, we were watching. When I was about 5, I watched Sound of Music, and that made a huge impression on me. My Fair Lady was a lovely movie that I remember. All the different American movies, the World War movies that my dad used to take me to, gave me a sense of, I was a kid, so my understanding was not perfect, but still I got a sense of what the involvement of the United States was in the war. The various American generals, for example, and so forth. And then, of course, the man landing on the moon was a very, very big deal. It actually influenced my life in a very big way, colored my life in a very big way.
Tell us about that.
Well, I must have been 11 years old at that time, and I was fascinated by the whole thing. And the only medium of information that I had open to me was the newspaper, and of course Voice of America in the shortwave radio. So every chance that I got, I would tune into Voice of America and then be listening to the Houston ground control talking to the spaceship and the astronauts. And so basically my mind would be building up the scenarios as this was going on. And then at night I would be walking with my dad on the streets and then looking up, and I remember it was particularly close to a full moon, and it was unimaginable that people were walking on the moon. And so that fired my imagination and the technology needed for that, and the daring.
Did that influence your what you wanted to do in your education?
In a big way. That and my father being an engineer was I think a big reason for me to be an engineer. And then before I forget, I wanted to mention, I remember thinking that it would be such a neat thing to work for NASA at that age.
That age.
At that age. And when I did my master's, I actually did a project for NASA. So in a certain sense, that dream came true.
Terrific. Now, you also come from a family of engineers.
Just my father was an engineer.
I thought you have uncles that...
My grandfather, mostly doctors in the family.
Mostly doctors.
Yeah. My dad was the only engineer.
Black sheep, right?
Yes.
So
Okay. All right, so the movies and music is something you cultivated at a very early age, the Americana stuff.
Yes, I would say so. And cartoons was a big deal. Tom and Jerry and Bugs Bunny and so forth, and wearing jeans and all these things, yeah.
Okay, what about the other composers, the European composers? When did you start to become appreciative of them? Was that
The
early
classical
on?
music?
The classical music. Or was that later on?
No, that was early on. I was very heavily influenced by the music of ABBA, which I consider very symphonic. ABBA was a Swedish pop group, that was very famous in Europe and in Australia, and started in the late 70s. And I grew up listening to Indian classical music, North Indian classical music, which is not dissimilar to this musical scale used by Indian music is the same as the Western scale. So the music harmonies are related. So it's not difficult to acquire a taste for Western classical music.
Mm-hmm.
And my first exposure was to Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik in friend's home. And ever since then...
What age would that have been?
I must have been about maybe 15, maybe 14, somewhere in that time frame, yeah.
So just prior to the Jesuit
during that, it was during that time.
During the Jesuit high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Jesuit school had no influence in terms of art or anything. It was strictly a instructional
Academics.
Yeah,
Academics.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go ahead.
Sorry. Well, what about like sport? We know you're a runner now, quite a good runner. But where did the sports come in? Where did the athletics come in at?
It must have been by nature I was active, and right from childhood I used to play a lot of sport. And tennis was my first serious sport. And to be fit for tennis, I would do some running. And I
Makes
think
sense.
it started from there.
What age are you doing tennis?
Tennis was starting at about 13.
Okay. So you're pretty good at tennis.
Intermediate, yeah.
Intermediate.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you getting lessons from your wife now?
Yes. Yeah. My backhand.
Your backhand. Okay. So let's pick up on Tony. So the running, tell us about your early running and where that was, and describe
the reason I asked part is I was wondering if you had any of those activities in school while you were growing up and going to school.
No,
it didn't sound like it. That's why I was.
Well, one of the things I envy the nice education, for example, in the United States, is where you get a wholesome package of sport, art, and academics. When I grew up, it was a single-minded focus on excelling in academics, because that meant your future in terms of getting into a good school and getting a good job and so forth. So, and we were not rich; we were very middle class. So that was a powerful impetus for excelling in school.
How was that pushed, or was that pushed?
It was pushed. My father was very clear, saying that he didn't have any property and that he couldn't educate us in expensive places, and that if we didn't shine, on our own merit, it would be very difficult for us to find a good place to study. And so it was pretty plain.
Do you remember from what age when that started, or?
This must be quite early. I would say starting even from the age of 10,
Okay. Okay.
like third grade.
So there's you and your
fourth
brother. Anybody else?
grade. Just the two of us.
Okay, so you're the youngest.
Oldest.
You're the oldest. Okay. He's the youngest.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then, so you had to do your running outside of school,
Yes.
and the sport of tennis facilitated that.
Yes. There was no running per se till I came to the U.S. So I didn't really run in India.
Oh, you did?
It was mostly like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It was not endurance. It was just
To get somewhere.
yeah, exactly. That was considered a big deal.
Yeah.
20 minutes running was wow. 20 minutes, that was a lot.
Well, the weather is hot, right?
No, it wasn't the weather as such. It was more that I'd rather get the pleasure of running through tennis rather than run by
Sake of
running.
Running, yeah.
So running was a means to an end, not
Okay.
an end in itself.
Okay. Okay. And when did you decide to come to the United States?
The decision and the act kind of happened at the same time, roughly in 1981. When I was about 23, I came here.
So prior to 23, you finished school in India, and are
Yeah,
you
then I
work-
did
are you
like a 5-year bachelor's in engineering, electrical
Okay.
engineering.
Okay.
And then I worked for a year, and then 1 year in a master's,
Okay.
and then I came here for a master's.
So you have 2 masters?
1.5.
1.5. Okay. So in 1981, and what kind of support did you get to leave India to go to the United States? Was there support from your family for that?
Well, yes, my father had to take a loan to buy the air ticket. And then he gave me $300.
Good luck.
And then said, I had a assistantship funded by NASA
Okay.
in this university that I was working.
Which university?
Howard University.
Howard, okay.
Yeah.
In Washington.
In Washington,
Yeah,
D.C.
yeah.
And so that was a support. I mean, that was a big deal that he had to take a loan.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you select Howard? I mean, how was that selected?
My uncle was a tenured professor in chemical engineering in Howard University.
Okay.
And my aunt, I'm very close to my aunt, and then so I thought I could have the support of my aunt and I see her every weekend or something like that. So I kind of chose that location.
This on the father's side?
Yes, father's sister.
Father's
Yeah.
sister, okay. Okay. So you went to family,
Yes.
left family to family.
True. That was a big thing. Yes, I had support
Okay.
that way. Yeah.
Okay. So do you remember, so did you arrive at Dulles or Reagan Airport? Where did you arrive?
I arrived in JFK.
Oh, New York.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And then that
What was
night.
that like? What was that like? Just arriving, 23 years old, and
Arriving in New York was a big deal. In the flight, I met a very interesting gentleman who was working in the government, and we had a nice chat about things. And I wanted to try to spot the Statue of Liberty as we were landing in, and then he was very curious as to why are you so interested in looking out for the Statue of Liberty and things like that. But anyway, JFK itself was not that. It didn't make that big an impression. But that night when I took off from JFK to BWI, and we were flying along, and I could see this myriad of lights, sea of lights. And I was thinking, wow, this is fantastic. What an advanced country. Look at all these lights, colored lights all over this place. And everything is so civilized. And so I was really impressed by that.
much different than at home.
Yeah, in India, when you take
Yeah.
off at night in those days, you would see like 10 lights or 20 lights. And here is just a sea of lights, an ocean of lights.
Oh.
It was fantastic.
Okay. And then that first day in Washington, is that where they were living?
Washington, D.C. outside. Yeah.
Okay. So what was that? What was that like? That
It was, you wake up and then everything is so clean and it is a very different world. I mean,
explain the differences.
I would say the biggest difference is the order, how orderly everything is, and you don't see people anywhere. You hardly see people on the street, which is a big shock. In India, if you walk on the street, I mean, you see thousands of people jostling each other almost.
That's interesting because I worked in Washington, D.C. for 4 years. I thought there was people everywhere.
In the city, yes, but if you're living in the suburbs, suburbs of Maryland, for example, everybody's inside their house or in their cars. There's nobody on the sidewalks. There's nobody playing in the streets. And so
No
you
one
see
sitting
this,
out on the porches.
yes, so you see a total absence of obvious human activity outside.
What'd you think about that?
I thought, first of all, that things, being so clean and nice, and the vegetation being so orderly, and people having beautiful lawns, and being so civilized. I thought, yeah, this is what I expected from the movies. This was the impression that the movies give you, that there is this place out there which is awesome, and that everything is perfect. And so in the beginning, when my cousins used to complain about normal things, I would say, "What are you complaining about? Things are so perfect here. You quit.
It's interesting.
Yeah, just be happy."
Okay. Okay. So the adjustment then was not that difficult or
Instantaneous.
instantaneous?
It's very easy to adjust from a bad place to a good place. If you went to India and you tried to adjust, that would be difficult.
Yeah.
For me to come from there to here and adjust, there's no problem at all.
What about the school? Differences?
Slight differences, but nothing really material, I would say. I had no problem with any of the accents. I had no problem picking up the customs, the social customs. I mean, being a vegetarian, it was difficult to eat outside, but otherwise, I would say that I was an American from the get-go. I could have been living here all my life.
You were a vegetarian even back then in '81. I thought that was
I was
more
raised. I was
recent.
born and raised a vegetarian.
You were? Okay.
Yes.
See?
know that.
It's easy that way.
Well, yes.
Right. Okay. Was there a reason for that?
For what?
Being raised as a vegetarian?
Yes, it's part of the belief system that my father ascribes to, which is ahimsa, Sanskrit word, non-violence. So, for that reason.
Okay. When did India become independent?
1947.
So you grew up in an independent India?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Was there residue from the British
Culture?
ownership culture?
I would say in a big way. The British left a very big heritage, both good and bad, to India, which is well documented, I'm pretty sure. But English language being one of those, I would say many of the educational systems which are in India are from the British heritage. Some of the literature, my admiration for P.G. Wodehouse comes from the legacy of the British rule, for example.
Okay.
So the Indian Railways, that was built by the British. Lots of things in India are actually because of the British. The bureaucracy also is also from.
That'd be a negative.
Yes.
What
Cricket would be another negative.
Another cricket.
Cricket.
Oh, cricket.
Another negative.
Any others?
No, I think that would be nothing much.
Some more positives and
Mostly, yeah,
Mostly
for sure.
positive.
I mean, the in the early days, I think the British rule was quite harsh, but by and large, I would say that many of the institutions which were built, I think, were done with good intention. Like I mentioned, the Indian Archaeological Society, the Indian Meteorological Society, the Indian Railways. Much of the art and literature came from the people who came and taught. So I would say the British did a lot of good for India.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What was your father's attitude towards the British?
He thought the same thing. I mean, apart from the fact that oppressive rule, or rule not by consent, is always oppressive, even if it is benevolent in some sense. Other than that fact, I would say that if you had to balance that against a self-rule by India itself, or maybe a rule, the Islamic rule which was there that the British usurped, I would say that it would be a much better thing that the British came in.
So I didn't realize that was Islamic before
Islamic,
the British,
yeah,
before the British
yes,
came?
yeah, exactly. From about the 1200 or so, India was invaded by Islamic kings from the Afghan passes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Pakistan too, right?
then there was no Pakistan in those
There was
days.
no Pakistan.
Pakistan
Yeah.
was made up.
Yeah.
Okay. More from Afghanistan?
Afghanistan was part of India.
Was part of India.
Yes.
So who divided it all up?
Complex story, but basically there were forces which wanted a separate state for Islamic people, and it came about, so the British people divided it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're here in the United States. You're young. You're going to graduate school, and the running, did that start?
Yeah, that
then?
was. It did start then. I remember running in the snow at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was a graduate student, so I had to put my time in the lab, and I didn't have much time. So the only time available was early in the morning. So
In the dark.
in the dark, yeah,
In the
I'd be
cold.
stumbling.
Dark and cold.
Yeah, mind-numbing cold.
That's why you don't like to run in the cold now.
Not now,
Still.
but that's how it got started.
So okay. And what was were you training for something in particular? Was it still tennis, or did it change
No, it was just to keep a basic level of fitness.
for fitness?
Yeah, because I was spending so much time in my chair in the lab that I needed to do some activity.
Now, did that come from your family? I mean, was there anyone else? I know your brother runs, but like your father, your mother, were any of your other, or you would have got that influence from, or?
No, we were mostly a family focused on academics and things like that. Nobody was inclined into sport or so forth.
So how
So-
do you and your brother come to this?
Well, I don't think it requires anything special. I mean, if given space and time and a natural inclination to be active, I think these would be natural outlets. If not running, it would be some sport or
Not
the
cricket?
other. Cricket is not a sport. So
Really?
It's a
Bernard
It's
Shaw.
a marathon.
It's one person playing and 12 fools watching, or what was some such thing. So anyway,
Okay.
so running was,
So did you get your brother started in running?
yes.
Okay. So how did that happen?
I would go back to India with a suitcase full of things for him when I visited him.
Like?
Nike shoes, $100 shoes. And in those days, $100 was a big deal. So these were the most expensive shoes, and I didn't care if they pronated or cushioned or whatever. These were just expensive and nice, so I would buy them. I'd buy him Adidas warm-up gear, and then in this hot Bangalore weather, he would put all these things on because it was American, right?
Right.
Yeah, he couldn't get them in India, so
Oh, you couldn't get that stuff. No.
So he's wearing sweats and.
he's wearing sweats and Nikes, and we would be running.
Were you
on
punishing him?
this. Perhaps.
Perhaps. Okay, so he had to run then because he had the equipment,
Had the equipment.
and he looked like a runner.
And it was fun. I mean, we would be running and swapping stories and stuff. So
And you more than just influenced him in India about running too. You also started a race there.
And
Long
we
distance racing.
have something to show. Hopefully, get a good picture of this.
well, yes.
Tell us about the race that Tony just mentioned.
Well, after I became an ultra runner here, and then I ran quite a few ultras, I moved back to India in 2005 in order to spend time with my father. And I was working for an American company which had a branch in Bangalore, India, Maximum Integrated Products. And then I decided to, and I was running there locally, and then I made a few friends in the running community, and I decided to give something back.
So there was a running community there?
There was one, yes, but they were running mostly in the streets, and they were focused on 10K and trying to keep fit and running half marathons and so forth. So, and they would be running on the streets, in traffic and so forth. So when I went back, I decided to show these guys how to run on trails. Now there are not that many trails in India, so we had to look hard to find them. And then I started running with groups of people, showing them how to run on trails, equipment, long distance running, endurance techniques, fueling, and so forth. And then
Fueling?
fueling, yes.
You were teaching this?
Yes.
I know that's interesting because he rarely drinks.
Personal experience,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But quite a few people were interested, and then I decided to conduct a 50K and a 80-kilometer endurance race, and I started doing this on my own, and then other groups and organizations pitched in, and then there was a group that was able to do the logistics far better than I could or I wanted to, so I gave them the responsibility of running the logistics part of it, but I gave them the IP of how to conduct a ultra event. There were doctors there, there were massage people there, people said they gained weight during the race because there was so much food on the aid stations.
And that's still going on. That's
Still going on, yeah. Started in 2007, and then they've spread all over India now, and they're conducting a lot of races and stuff, and there's more awareness of trail running and ultra running in India now, adventure running, for example.
Okay. What would that adventure running be like in India?
Well, there are a few races now. There's a race in the Himalayas. I think there's like a 100-mile race, like a stage race, which was there even before, but it was more like an elite kind of an event where most Indians didn't take part. It was mostly for top runners in the world to come and experience some really, I would say, extraordinary surroundings to run in. Whereas I wanted the more of a participation for the local Indians to run in reasonable places and in reasonable times and costs. And so we started these ultras. So we would pick like a 12.5K loop in suburban fields and so forth, and then we could staff that easily. And then so people got to enjoy. There would be like 12.5K, 25K, 50K, 80K, and then slowly it got to like where now they conduct 24-hour runs. And there were people who did like 160K. There was one guy who did 160K, 24 hours.
It's a long way.
Yeah. So, and you could say that I started the whole thing.
Okay.
We will.
We just did. We just did. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience running on the trail? Because you've told Tony and I some stories about
Snakes,
snakes, things like
running
that.
with cobras.
Well, as you may or may not know, India is a tropical country, and it's warm and humid, and it's infested with snakes and the poisonous variety. And the cobra, of course, is infamous for the cobras and the king cobras and so forth. So in the place where I run in, where my house is in Bangalore, my dad's house is, we have a small loop of 3 kilometers. 1.5 miles. And so I run with a couple of tennis rackets, and what I do is when I get to a section where there's a lot of brush, I beat the tennis rackets together to create a racket, no pun intended, so that I can scare the snakes away. And I started doing this because once when I was running on my own with no equipment, I literally stepped on a cobra. Literally, not once, at least about 2-3 times I stepped on cobras. So I thought I was just risking it too much. And since I did this racket thing, I haven't come close to stepping on a snake.
So it works. It scares them.
It scares them away.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Does it work for all snakes?
It's just hard to be definitive, but
I haven't tried it with rattlesnakes yet.
It gives me confidence
Okay.
that. Plus, it's a tennis racket, and I can always do a backhand if
You're working on your backhand,
snake
right?
gets on.
You work on your backhand then?
We work
Yeah.
on my backhand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, doesn't matter what hand.
I have one in each hand.
And you can do
I can
backhand.
do a
with
left-handed
each.
backhand or a right-handed
So you
backhand.
must be great on the court then, the tennis court with your backhand.
It's improved my game.
It's improved your game. Okay. All right. So, can you buy Adidas and Nike in India now?
Yes, you can buy. Now you can pretty much get most things in India. Over the last, I would say, 20 years or so, you can get practically anything.
So things have really changed
We-
within it.
Within 10 years after my departure from India, things changed dramatically.
Is that your fault too?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. So there you are in Washington, D.C. at Howard getting a master's. And then what happened to you career-wise?
Well, I didn't want to leave the United States, obviously. I mean, this was heaven for me. So
What part would be heaven?
at that point in time, all of United States was heaven for me.
The entire United States.
Yeah, I just didn't want to leave.
So you fit in really well.
Yeah. I had no problem at all.
Okay.
And so with my master's, I was looking for a job. And 1983 was a boom year, and there was a huge hiring binge by all the technology companies, and I was hired straight from school. And I remember in my interview they asked me, so is $30,000 salary is good enough? I said, I don't really care. Just give me a job. I don't care about the money.
Is that a Bay Area company?
Yeah, I flew in here for the interview, and I remember I was in the Marriott Hotel in Santa Clara, near Bowers and 101, on the 5th floor. That evening after the interview, I stood by the window looking out sunset on the Santa Cruz Hills, and I said, wow, this place is so amazing. The weather is so beautiful. It would be so fantastic if I can get a job here, to live here.
So was this your first choice or just so happened?
It so happened.
It just so happened. So you didn't really research the area
No.
prior?
But later on, when I had the chance, when I got settled and there were good offers from all over the United States, all over the world even, I had no intention of moving any place else other than the Bay Area. Not even Southern California, not even San Diego. San Diego was the closest second, I would say, but I didn't want to go any place else. And even now, if I wouldn't want to live Any place in the United States except in, I would say, Northern California.
So they're just going to say you're in cool now. What happened?
This is Northern California, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. For a moment I thought,
All right. So you're in the Bay Area. This is 1983. And tell us about your running development
okay.
in the Bay Area, because that had to be significant.
Yeah, in the beginning it was mostly work.
Because you didn't have to run in the snow at 5 o'clock in the morning.
No, indeed. My real running didn't start till about 87 when I entered a 10K, and I thought there's no way I could run a 10-kilometer distance, and my boss signed me up for that.
Is he a runner?
Yeah, he was a runner. But and then we ran this 10K race. It took me I think 57 minutes, I think, and it was around Fremont to Lake Elizabeth.
Yes, Lake Elizabeth.
And
downtown Fremont.
yeah, you know that place,
I know
right?
the
Yeah.
area,
So that was my first 10K, and I felt pretty good after having run that. And then we were doing 10Ks and half marathons and stuff like that. And then I joined Hewlett-Packard, or my company got acquired by Hewlett-Packard, and Jim Hooley, a friend of mine, used to do the Western States. And so when he started telling me about stories about Western States, my jaw dropped. I mean, people running 100 miles. I thought people, no, he was lying. There was no way
Can't
people
do that.
could do these kinds of things. And then he used to talk about a person called Tim Tweetmeyer. Tim or Jim?
Tim.
Tim
Works
Tweetmeyer.
for HB2, or used to.
Yeah, he said he knew him from the Roseville facility, and so he used to tell me about his exploits, and so somehow I got signed into the San Francisco Marathon.
Somehow.
Yeah,
someone just
My
signed
friends.
you up.
They just signed you up, right?
They just signed me up,
sure,
yeah.
Sure.
and then they started. We were training together, so I fell into a group of runners at Phillips Semiconductors in Sunnyvale, and my good friend Bill Mack, he got me into running, and he taught me everything that I know in terms of long distance running. And we used to run the beautiful trails of Rancho San Antonio and Cupertino, some of the best places in the world to run. And it was 15 minutes from my workplace, so it was great.
Mm-hmm.
So then the first 50K was at the Quicksilver Park, and that was a beautiful. In those days, it was put forth by Norm and Helen Klein, I think.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that race has been going on a long time.
yeah, and he had a particular, I think, some soup, minestrone soup, I think, was his favorite at the 50K finish. They had a fantastic vegetarian post-race party, so that helped me quite a bit to enjoy
Well,
that
that's your
thing.
favorite 50K, isn't it?
Because it was so accessible. It was
Well, it's pretty too.
it was very pretty, yeah. A good time of the year, and the volunteer support, and just everything was so good. And even the Skyline 50K was pretty nice in
That's
those days.
pretty too, yeah.
Yeah, it's very pretty areas. You can't go wrong running in the Bay Area in those
Not at
hills.
all.
No,
yeah,
you can't.
Yeah, it's lovely.
But I know you haven't limited your running to the Bay Area. You've run all over the world.
Yes, I've run in Switzerland. One of my favorite places to run is actually in Switzerland. My wife and I, we typically go to a nice place and have a good breakfast, and then with a good backpack head out for an all-day run hike. And our aid stations would be these beautiful cafes and these on the sides of these big fields with gorgeous views, and then you just have a nice hot cappuccino and then keep going. And
Is that where the cappuccino started?
no, that started way back.
Way back.
Yeah. But
Okay.
this is high class stuff. I mean, running in the Alps, and then so you go to this spotless cafe, Swiss. Everything is Swiss and perfect.
Cool.
And then you get back and run in these beautiful alpine meadows and gorgeous glaciers and things, and it can't get any better than that.
Where else?
Running in the redwoods, I would say, is a very spiritual experience in the California redwoods. Running anywhere, I think, is a spiritual experience, but some of these places is very, very special. Running in the Bay Area, when you go above the fog line in the morning, you see the sunrise, and it's very special up in the mountains over there.
Well, tell us how you met your lovely wife running. Tell us about that experience.
Well, I was divorced, and then I went back to India to be with my parents, and I was doing all this running, and then this preparation for this race, for the first ultra in Bangalore. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I was quite involved in running and coaching people. And I used to go to this place called Cubbon Park, which is like Central Park of New York, but much smaller. The only place that you could really do any kind of running inside of the city, especially in a city like in India, like in Bangalore in India. And so I was running with, and then my future wife was running with a friend of hers, and then I got introduced to her for the first time there.
While you were running?
While we were running, yes.
What distance were you running?
We were running, this was a recovery run, I think. We were maybe running like about maybe 10, 15K.
At what speed?
I would say maybe about 12 kilometers per hour, maybe 5 minutes per kilometer speed. Yeah, I forget the mile thing because I'm so used to
That's
kilometer.
okay.
I'm so sorry.
I'm trying to convert it.
Well, 5 kilometers is 3 miles.
I think it's
3.1.
Yeah, I think it's about 7.5 or 8 minute miles, maybe
Okay.
somewhere in that.
So
range.
you were going fast, and you could talk and flirt at the same time?
I was pretty good in those days.
You were good at those days. Okay. So that's how you met her.
Yes.
Okay. And how do you compare with hers? Because she's a runner too.
Yeah, she's a very good runner. She was actually a junior national champion for hurdles, 110-meter hurdles or 100-meter hurdles, I think it is, in India. And so she's more of a competitive, college level, almost professional kind of runner, and not into distance, but more into speed and power. Whereas mine is slow, long distance.
Slow.
Would you agree with that, Tony?
Well, not when he runs with us.
Well, you're doing great at
That's who you're
73, and you're doing great at 62. I'm only 55, so
Yeah.
74.
73. Okay.
74.
4, okay.
74, yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience about your life or future? We haven't touched on. We've because the time has gone by so quickly, so there's not a whole lot of time for our show, today's show.
Well, okay. You can cut me off anytime you want, but I would say that it is good to reflect on human existence and to the purpose in life, and to see what it is that we can do to improve the cause, if there is one, and how to live a life that is virtuous, and what exactly is the meaning of virtue, and how to go about defining and then setting goals and the means to achieve these goals, so that one can lead a virtuous life. I think, as I see, many people lead a fragmented life wherein the consistency is not uniform across all sectors of their working, so to speak. And it is good to have a cohesive outlook for one, and to develop that. And then the more that one does that, and the more that rationality integrated with compassion, I think is a sure success for the commonness, the oneness of humanity. I think this bigger picture and the way of how to achieve that, people need to reflect on that.
We don't do enough of that.
I think we want it. The goal is there, but I think people struggle sometimes as to, and it has to be a grassroots effort. It has to be a philosophical effort in the sense that unless one understands what is the philosophy needed in order to get to a certain ideal, one will never get there. And that philosophy has to be consistent. It has to be transcendent across all the divisive factors that encompass us. So what exactly is that philosophy? How to find it and how to incorporate that into our lives? I think that is a big thing.
Well, we're going to have to pick up on that the next time, because we're just out of time. I really want to thank you, Madhu, for coming here and sharing your worldly experiences with us. It's been a real treat.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Anything you want to add, Tony, to that? Or
No, just that we just enjoy running with Madhu. He's very interesting, and he teaches us about our own government sometimes.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Thomas Paine a little bit, but we ran out of time for that. We'll have to do that after the show.
All right.
Thomas Paine and how that originated. Well, thank you for joining us for 2014, our first show. Thank you.